Hello and welcome to Launerin's Gamer Score and welcome to GreedFall. Um, so this is an action-adventure game from, well, an action-adventure RPG, I guess, from Spider Software. I think it is. So what I'm going to do today is I'm just going to start a new game and we're just going to kind of go through some of the tutorial and talk about what you need to know before jumping into the game. So with that in mind, let's jump right in. Right. Since it doesn't really matter which difficulty mode I'm going to go on, I'll just leave it on normal for now. And there we go. So
Could you stand a little taller, just a tad?
this is how it starts, basically.
Yes,
So
yes.
this works out as your character creation, essentially. So you get to personalise your character and all of that. So let's just go through that. Obviously you have the two options of whether or not you're male and female, and you have preset faces that you can choose from, and then in addition to that, obviously you can tweak and change hairstyles, facial hair, and all the rest as well. Well, that was a little bit random, but yeah, let's keep that. That's funky enough for me. Alright, so you've got your three basic starting classes. What I've found in my playthrough that I'm actually doing at the moment of the game is it doesn't really matter which one of these you pick, because you can always move off in another direction anyway. So to start with, you've got the warrior class, which is ideal for people that want to use big heavy weapons and firearms and rely on strength. So the kind of stuff that they don't tell you at this point of the game is what each of the attributes kind of means in the game, and what some of the talents mean as well. So I'll talk about those a little bit. The attributes, so strength is essentially your which weapons and stuff you can wield, so you'll need a higher strength to wield heavier weapons. Endurance is pretty much the same but for armour as well. And then with craftsmanship, that's how well you can actually make your own gear, or adapt your own gear I should say, but we'll get onto that shortly. And then vigor is essentially your athletic ability, so there are areas in the game where you need a vigor score in order to advance past those specific points. So we'll move on to the next class, which is technical. So this is different things that you can do to kind of control the battlefield. So you can, for this one, it's more kind of based around long range and being stealthy, essentially. In battle you can set traps and things, so that's one of the skills that you start off with here. Again, you have firearms and one-handed blades. This is the kind of thing that where you'd probably specify that you'd kind of go for the shorter blades that are quicker or something like that. So we'll move on to the attributes. This one, the recommended ones are accuracy and agility. Accuracy obviously is to do with how well you can aim and is tied in with which firearms you can use, and agility is the same as well as far as I can remember. The talents around this is where the kind of stealth comes in. The science and lockpicking. Lockpicking is self-explanatory. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a little while. Science, however, that if you take that talent, then you can develop your own potions and also explosions, which is always good fun. So moving on to the magic one, this is, again, it's long ranged, don't really want to get right up into close combat, more about magic using and things like that. So the Divine Magic Ring, that's just something that comes with the class as far as I can work out with that one. Stasis, I can't actually remember exactly what that does off the top of my head, so we'll have a look at that in a little while. One-handed weapons, heavy weapons, again, that's pretty self-explanatory. Mental power and willpower, so they're all to do with your spell casting ability and your like magic points or whatever it is that they, like MP is usually referred to as like your spell casting magic pool or whatever you want to call it. Again, you've got science in there, which we've talked about before, and then intuition, which helps with finding items and things like that. So what we'll do is we'll go with technical for now, and we'll just carry on from there. So here we go, this talks a little bit more in depth about each of the skills, sorry, about each of the attributes. So strength, like I was saying earlier, is to do with whether or not you can handle weapons, specifically blunt weapons, that one is. And then agility is to do with whether or not you can wield the better swords, and also increases your fury generation, which is essentially, it gives you a powerful attack every now and again. And then mental power, like I mentioned earlier, is to do with the power of your spells and whether you can use the magical rings. Now we go, willpower is maximum MP and spell duration, and that's to do with amulets and necklaces. Accuracy is all firearms and to do with wielding the better firearms, and endurance, which is for armour. So what you'll notice there is that each and every one of them is kind of saying that you need this in order to use these specific items, or you need this in order to gain access to these specific skills. So while yes, choose carefully at the start of the game, you can very quickly start to kind of go through them. Each one does only cost one skill point if you want to upgrade it. However, you do only get these skill points every 4 levels or so. You don't get these ones coming through at the start of the game at every level. So I've gone for accuracy for now, just because I do like using firearms, things like that. So now we move on to our abilities. So we start off with charisma, which is fairly self-explanatory. It's very similar in a lot of these RPG games, and that's your ability to talk to people and get better deals and things like that. So science, you can make potions and you can destroy walls with the help of explosive files. That's always helpful. What I've noticed is there always is a kind of back way in that's a little bit hidden away from everything else, where you could kind of sneak in if you could destroy a wall or two. So that's handy to kind of pick up as soon as you can as well. Lock picking, one thing I have noticed is, especially at the start of the game, there is a lot of chests that are locked with a level 1 lock. So if you do choose that during your character creation, then you will get access to a lot more loot and things that you can collect, which I think is vital at the early stages of the game. Intuition, which increases the amount of things that you would actually get from looting as well, and it unlocks more dialogue options as well for you. So that could be quite interesting to take if you want to take a kind of, like, if you combine that with the charisma throughout the game, and so that could be quite useful at the start of the game as well. Craftsmanship, it does make things a lot easier, I've found. If you can upgrade your own weapons, you don't have to pay as much, and you can just do it yourself whenever you want, whereas otherwise you'd have to go to a blacksmith and pay them to do it, which is a little bit on the expensive side. And then vigor, like I mentioned, you come across difficult passages and things like that in the game, which would require a higher vigor level to actually get past. So what I would actually recommend at the start of the game, at least, is invest in the lockpicking and go from there, because you're going to get access to a lot more things right at the start. And if you do spend some time in the kind of tutorial section, you will level up quite quickly, and you could always get something else popped on before you've even finished the tutorial.
Just a few more minutes. You have such an incredibly singular face. That's a compliment,
Thank you.
my lord, out of my mouth. Your particular...
Right. Let's skip that. There we go. So, one thing that I do find a bit bizarre about this, and it isn't really like normal RPGs, is that you don't get to choose your own name. You're already named in this.
Hey! Green blood!
Cut.
And so the day has finally come. My royal fledglings are...
So yeah, you're essentially a
Accompanied by their most
royal
loyal and
prince,
tenacious
I
master of
think.
arms.
But yeah, your character is
Enough with the cold mercenary. I know
Disarday.
you like us. Still hiding your men in the unsuspecting shadows of the greats of this world, I see.
Hey, our blades are the only thing keeping you
Right,
dead.
okay. Alright. There we go. Prove to Kurt that I can fight. Alright then. Oh. Open. Alright, so the tactical pause menu does give you a little bit of a chance to kind of slow the whole fight down and just have a look at some of your abilities that you could use in the battle. So I've bound my firearm and a health potion to the D-pad just to allow for quicker use. So if we just... What are you doing? There we go. go.
You defend yourself well, Greenblood. One might think you had a proper master of arms. The best.
One might think it.
You already training for your new post of legate? Don't tire yourself. Flat, but for the fight, you have remembered your basics. Unless you want to go through the paces again.
No, I
thanks
think
all
I'll
the
be
same.
alright, thank
I've
you.
quite a few tasks to check off my list before we depart.
And here you are already assuming your political functions. And in a hurry. Always too busy. Very well. You'll always find...
Are your bags packed?
Yeah.
On the contrary, I'm thrilled. A few friends at your side.
Ah, so... By the way, where...
I should have gone with
Then
you.
isn't it? I'll meet you in...
Very well.
Wonderful. So that's the combat tutorial. It's all fairly simple. I do feel like it's not a case of you can just attack. You have
What
to...
is this? Have you not been taught to not...
You do have to kind of dodge and parry and keep up to scratch with all that sort of thing.
Kurt? It's done.
Sorry, Greenblood. Look, we can see the masts of the ship.
I hope this...
In order to...
You're right.
This will be the commander.
Of
In the...
Right.
So throughout the adventure game, whichever you want to call it, you basically meet companions and you can swap and change them so that you only take certain ones with you, and each person has their own skills and abilities and things like that, so you have to think about what you're going to need. You can do quests with them and things, and that builds your relationship level as well, which is nice to kind of have that kind of thing built into the game as well. Each character, especially if they're your friend, does have a friendship bonus as well. Like for example, Kurt does give you a bonus in craftsmanship, so you're able to adjust your own weapons and armour and make them more powerful more easily if you're friends with him. So it's always a good idea to keep talking to him every now and again and see if he's got any quests or anything for you to do to help build your relationship. So here is the skill wheel, if you will. So throughout the game you'll obviously unlock skill points and be able to power up your skills and deal more damage with weapons and do different things until you get all the way up to the top and you're starting to just add more and more into your character. There are a lot of ways to go. You can save up and do these skills over on the right hand side, which will which take up 2 skill points to train up rather than just 1. And here's the attributes tree and the talents tree, which we've already gone through as well. So here's where you access kind of your weapons. So you'll see next to each one there is a crafting node. That's where you kind of make your adjustments to your weapon and make them more powerful. Obviously right now we haven't got much to the map, but it really does get a lot bigger if we just scroll over. So here is Serene. This is where we are right now. So this is basically where the tutorial takes place, and you kind of learn about the game. However, if we zoom out, this is the main island that you get to go to shortly after over in New Serene, which is the city of the Merchant Congregation. So I've got all of these quests and things about going and seeing people. and dealing with that. But I don't want to get too much into the storyline and things, so what we'll do is we'll go and have a look
I've been asked to pay visits to the ambassadors of
at
Thélème and the
a
Bridgerlands
quick little
before I
fight
depart.
outside
Their
of my
dwellings are
fight
not
with
far from here.
Kurt,
Sire, I'm sorry. I'm afraid that I won't.
and then we will end it there. I will say that this is definitely my kind of game, and I have been enjoying playing it. Hello. And you do get stealth attacks as well.
To my help! And death to the others!
Yeah. Yeah. There we go, and then we just looty loot loot, and then we get more stuff and more stuff. Yeah. One little bit more advice that I would give is make sure you do explore everywhere when you're in Serene, and definitely keep track of all of the armor and equipment that you do pick up, because it's always a good idea just every now and then just drop into your inventory and just see if you've picked up anything better than the armor that you currently have on, because it's always worth just upgrading your armor whenever possible. So the last thing that I'm going to talk about before I do end this video is essentially, thanks to Kurt, just armor in general. Obviously you've got your usual armor score, but in addition to that you've got your balance score, which is how well balanced you are, i.e. how easy it is to knock you down. Quality, which is essentially the best way to tell how good a piece of armor is, and then a lot of armor will have these additional things with it as well. For example, this one gives you a bonus to lockpicking and an elemental resistance. And then obviously at the bottom of the piece of equipment description, you've got your 3 nodes on the left hand side, and then on the right hand side you have its weight and its monetary value. But next to the monetary value is a little blue symbol with what appears to be like a chevron in it, essentially similar to the one on his chest. These symbols are on a fair amount of clothing. There are some pieces of clothing that you can get without them, but they denote the faction to which they belong, which is something you also want to look out for when equipping different armor, because there are some factions that don't get on, or judging by your way of playing the game, you might not get on with the factions yourself. So it's always good to kind of have a spare piece of armor that you could get changed into if you need to get past certain guards for certain factions. So it's always worth making a note which faction is which. Okay, so that's all for this week. I hope this video has been informative, probably not as entertaining as I would have hoped, but hopefully I've given you a little bit of an insight into the things you need to know before just jumping into the game and picking it up as you go along. Thank you very much for watching. If you did enjoy this video, please do like, share and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.